We begin our journey today in the dark heart of 1888. London was a city of two worlds, the glittering West End and the crushing squalor of Whitechapel, a place where the fog, thickened yellow like a pea souper, hid more than just poverty. It hid a nightmare that would never truly end. For over a century, the mystery of Jack the Ripper has fascinated and terrified the world. Today, we peel back the layers of time to uncover the truth. Stay curious, stay logical. In Whitechapel, over 80,000 people were crammed into a single square mile of squalor. Hygiene was almost non-existent, and for many, a bed was an impossible dream. Thousands slept in common lodging houses, or worse, leaned against ropes in the infamous penny sit-ups just to get a few hours of rest. In this environment of desperation, human life became tragically cheap. It was the stage for a drama that would leave the world breathless. It was the perfect hunting ground for a predator who knew how to vanish into the shadows of the night. In the early hours of August 31st, the body of Mary Ann Nichols was discovered in Bucks Row. Polly, as she was known to her friends, was 47 years old, a woman who had struggled with the harsh realities of life in the East End, moving between workhouses and lodging houses. She was remembered as a kind and gentle woman, despite her many battles with poverty. Her brutal death marked the beginning of what the press would soon call the Autumn of Terror. The city was about to be gripped by a fear it had never known before, a fear that would change the face of police work forever. Just over a week later, the horror escalated with the murder of Annie Chapman, a mother of three who had fallen on hard times after the death of her husband. She was discovered in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street. The brutality of her injuries suggested something far more sinister than a random attack. The killer had spent time with her, performing mutilations that pointed to a terrifying anatomical knowledge. The city began to whisper of a leather apron, a mysterious figure haunting the dark corners of Spitalfields, a figure that the police were desperate to catch. The panic was starting to boil over. Every stranger was a potential killer. September 30th would become the most infamous night in the Ripper's reign of terror, known to history as the Double Event. Elizabeth Stride, known as Long Liz, was found first in Berner Street. It's believed the killer was interrupted before he could finish his gruesome work, as her injuries were less extensive than the others. Stride had emigrated from Sweden, seeking a better life in the bustling streets of London, only to find herself a victim of the same pervasive darkness. But the night was far from over. Within the hour, the monster would strike again, mere blocks away. Catherine Eddowes was discovered in Mitre Square, within the boundaries of the City of London. Her murder was the most horrific yet, with specific organs removed and taken from the scene. The police were now facing a monster who seemed to mock them, leaving a trail of blood across two different jurisdictions. The pressure on the Metropolitan Police and Scotland Yard was reaching a breaking point. Vigilante committees began to roam the streets, fueled by a mixture of fear and rage, and the atmosphere in Whitechapel was one of pure, unadulterated terror. The killer was mocking the law. The final of the canonical five was Mary Jane Kelly, the youngest and most tragic of them all. Killed in the relative privacy of her own room in Miller's Court, the mutilations were so extreme they defies description, a total desecration of the human form. It was a cold, rainy November morning when her body was found by her landlord's assistant. After this final horrific act, the murders stopped as abruptly as they had begun. The Ripper seemed to vanish back into the fog, leaving behind a legacy of fear and a mystery that would remain unsolved for over a century. Why did he stop? Where did he go? During this time, the media frenzy reached a fever pitch. A letter was sent to the Central News Agency, signed with the name that would change everything, Jack the Ripper. While many believed the letter was a journalist's hoax, the name stuck. It gave the killer a face in the public imagination, a face that became a global obsession. The press didn't just report the murders, they amplified the terror. Every detail, no matter how gruesome, was analyzed by a public that was both terrified and transfixed. The legend of Jack was born in the pages of the Penny Dreadfuls. That name was Aaron Kosminski, a Polish Jew who had fled the violent pogroms of his homeland. He settled with his siblings right in the heart of Whitechapel. To his neighbors, he was a quiet hairdresser, but the detectives watching him saw something much darker. Kosminski's psychiatric records paint a terrifying picture of a man suffering from paranoid schizophrenia. He heard voices that commanded him to commit horrific acts, and he was known to harbor a deep, homicidal hatred for women. He was a ticking time bomb, living in the center of the terror, a man who fit the psychological profile perfectly. To the police, he was the man. In the private notes of Chief Inspector Donald Swanson, a stunning revelation was discovered. Swanson wrote that Kosminski had actually been identified by a witness, the only person to ever get a good look at the Ripper's face. This identification took place at a seaside home, a secret confrontation. But the witness, also being Jewish, allegedly refused to testify against a fellow member of his community, fearing a wave of anti-Semitic violence. Without that testimony, the police were legally powerless. Kosminski walked free until he was sent to the asylum. The secret was kept for over a century. But today, the shadows are finally receding. In Part 2, we reveal the modern DNA breakthrough. Stay curious, stay logical. Coda Hafiz.